Welcome, everyone, to No Shots Fired Podcast Episode 63, Stonks 3, Bonk's Revenge, in which we explain to you everything you're gonna need to get rich in the Stonks market and bonk benches. Doesn't matter what hedge fund you're slam dunking, we're gonna give you the bunk to get them stuck.
Hey, bless up to the hedge funds, guys.
Bless up to the hedge funds. Actually, I mean, I would sell out if they want to buy our loyalty on this stonk.
We can be bought.
Podcast.
That's very true.
What do you think, or what is our dollar amount? What is?
I don't want to disclose that in case the feds really start digging through the archives here.
I would do it for one ice cold Dr. Pepper.
So, classic Dr. Pepper, or are you shooting for, cherry or?
It's got to be a classic. Although I did, a roommate's girlfriend the other day, said that she thought that the 23 flavors on the can were not indicative of 23 flavors within the same beverage, but that there were 23 unique variants of Dr. Pepper.
If
they only released.
That would be a more valid statement instead of 23 flavors when something that is one drink.
It's one flavor.
It's one flavor. It's Dr. Pepper flavor.
That's and after I thought about it for a few seconds, like you, I was like, yeah, I actually think that's bullshit that Dr. Pepper doesn't have 23. And that'd be so fun to be like, oh yeah, number 8 is out this month. I love number 8.
If only we lived in that world.
It's number 9. Number 9 is awful.
Apparently, it's the flavors are the smells that were in the pharmacy where Dr. Pepper was created.
That is even worse.
I agree, but that is like the result of Googling why.
Dude gets high off of rubber cement, and we got to live with that for the rest of our goddamn lives.
That when cocaine was one of the original, like, is that Dr. Pepper that old? That one of the
the nature's stimulant, I believe you're referring to.
But they offset it with some just solid opium to really bring you down.
Good for the humors.
Right, humors. Can we bring back humors? Why is nobody checking my blood to see the color of my humor?
Yeah, missed opportunity, I think.
Coca-Cola didn't stop the cocaine until almost 50 years after Dr. Pepper was invented.
When was Dr. Pepper invented?
1880s, in fact.
Wow.
When was Coca-Cola invented?
Coca-Cola, I don't know when it was invented. That isn't what I looked up. I looked when they stopped using it.
Boy, I went to the Coca-Cola Museum in Atlanta and everything. I learned nothing.
And they didn't talk about how they used actual cocaine.
I'm sure they did, but this was several years ago.
For Coca-Cola.
Okay, so Dr. Pepper, the OG, is what
I would have guessed. We should do because we're going to talk about our gamer fuel some week. We should do our drink and gamer fuel rankings.
Oh, okay.
I know I talked about that last week, but I think that needs to be a topic.
Anybody feeling up during this pod?
No, I could grab a Dr. Pepper. I just don't know that I am.
I forgot to grab drinks on my way home from work, so yeah, I've got water, or I could blend a superfood smoothie that's in the fridge, and that's.
I had water, and then it's my water bottle, and I spilled it on the floor, so I no longer have water.
I've got a Dragon's Milk Solera, which is a food or aged ale.
Could I see that label? Could you give me a label? Label check.
A fooder.
I have to wait, 8 seconds to actually see. It's just a solid label, Solera.
Apparently, the process is just like a big barrel for a while. Which I was hoping for something a little cooler and more involved, but it's just like.
Isn't that normally the?
Oh shoot! I forgot about it. No, these are even bigger barrels.
Oh, Barrel size increased.
Yeah,
That gives it the Soul Ra.
Yeah, thick barrels.
Soul E-Ray.
Thick barrels is a
Flavor.
good podcast title.
This week we're going to be talking about Metroid Prime, Control, Morrowind, games that surpassed their genre. Games that... I thought we were talking about
it's games we like despite not liking the genre.
Liking the genre. Okay. Games that have overcome our hatred for their genre.
Our prejudices.
And then we're gonna take your questions. And talk about the Stonk Bonk. Anyway, let's talk about Metroid Prime then. Who's playing Metroid Prime?
So Metroid Prime is one of the games on the list we are going to be ranking in the very near future. And I wanted to give a little more focus to it tonight, because I think it's a very good game. So Metroid Prime, as I'm sure all are aware, is one of many Samus games that are out there. It was, I think, the first 3D Metroid game.
Correct.
And I honestly think it is an amazing first entry for a trilogy, especially like as different as the gameplay functionally is by being a 3D GameCube game instead of a 2D Super Nintendo or Game Boy game.
Nintendo's ability to move their franchises into 3D was pretty incredible. When you think about it.
Yeah, a lot of success there. Zelda, Metroid, Mario. Pretty much just anything that they've done, then when they moved into 3D, it was great.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, for at least in my experience, I think Metroid Prime, out of the trilogy that exists so far, is actually the best. I think they actually did their best attempt with their first entry in the series, rather than...
would you say makes it the best, as opposed to the follow-up?
So,
I have an idea.
So, in terms of why I do not like Metroid Prime 2 as much, I don't like the upgrades and weapons that are, of course, central to a Metroid game as much. The environments also just aren't as interesting. Neither are the bosses, really.
Got it.
Prime 2 is actually the only game in the trilogy I haven't ever been able to complete, because I always just hit like a block where I'm just bored and don't really want to continue. Which...
It's like a light world, dark world kind of thing, right? So you kind of...
Yeah, it's a light world, dark world kind of thing, and I think, sadly, the concept just isn't that interesting. Like, they don't do anything interesting with the execution there.
Yeah.
The reason for me ranking Metroid Prime 3 lower is because, if I recall correctly, it's only available on the Nintendo Wii. And while playing the Nintendo Wii can be great fun, being stuck having to be in a situation where you can manipulate the Wii controller is kind of an impediment compared to, just a GameCube controller. I don't believe there's any way to just play it with like a classic controller.
No, and actually I have the Metroid Prime trilogy on the Wii, so I should actually try to play the Metroid Prime with the motion controls and see.
I do think that I would consider, if it weren't for that, if it were available in a different form, I think I would consider 3 roughly on par with 1, both because of going back to better environment design, in my opinion, and better design in general than I felt Metroid Prime 2 had. Now, the Metroid Prime series is a combination of an action-adventure game and a shooter game, and shooter is not a genre that I typically like, so I find it very interesting that this would be what I would consider probably one of my favorite games on the GameCube, despite being part of a genre that I don't really care for, generally speaking.
Would you say like the lock-on aspect maybe helps you with that? Because it like a shooter, yeah, it's definitely a first-person shooter, but it has such a strong kind of like lock-on targeting aiming system.
Think the lock-on system might help a little with that, but I also just think that kind of the focus on the adventure aspect of it really helps distinguish it from, say, Call of Duty, for example.
Yeah.
Or our misadventures in Counter-Strike.
Hey, we did really well with you. Don't you dare say that.
Would you say that, yes, it's like a first-person shooter, but it definitely has all of the Metroidvania elements of its two-dimensional predecessors? I mean, you're still getting aids and exploring new areas, and
yes, it has implemented its Metroidvania aspects very well. You do have save points, unlike in, well, I suppose most Metroidvania games have save points. I was thinking some of them might be like, kind of roguelike games, but I suppose that's not necessarily true.
The original Metroid had like a password system, but that was kind of before batteries and all.
I think the original Metroid also had something like that. Basically, the reason I like it is because it's feels very unique as an action-adventure game because of the shooter elements that it implements very well. I also just think that the boss design in it is fantastic.
Love fighting a pile of rocks.
For me, the giant plant monster that you fight in the game is actually one of the fights I remember most in my head. And like even just some of the general enemy design I think is fantastic. Like the space pirates that are, of course, the antagonists throughout the Metroid series look great. Ridley is great in 3D. And I also just like the various suit designs that Samus gets throughout the game. I like the progression of clearly looking upgraded as you go along.
Scan visor's pretty cool. That's a fun.
The scan visor's pretty cool too. Being able to learn all the lore involved, all like the background of the creatures on the planet you're on. Being able to read like little lore things that pop up in the game. And I like the various different weapons that you get in the game, which are all pretty obvious designs, of course. Like you get a lightning beam, a fire beam, and an ice beam, but they're all fun to use for different reasons.
Any good weapon design brings a different feel to, it helps expand the universe a little bit. Especially
in a shooter type game where so many of them basically go with, okay, this is the same gun with a different skin, here you go.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a big failure, again, in actual weapon design, where, again, it doesn't feel like you need to feel like you're, especially in a Metroid game where you're in this sci-fi universe.
Well, and to be fair, the weapons are kind of just the arm cannon with a different color, right? They definitely feel different, and I like how they interact differently with the environment. I think it's very cool, but the look of it, like, you kind of like, it's red when it's the plasma beam, I think is the wording for the fire thing. The electric, like, wave beam is like purple, which is, distinctive, but your arm does not change much.
I do also like the different effects on the enemies, though. Like, certain enemies burn to crisp or freeze into a block, and then you hit them with a missile and they just explode.
Satisfying. Especially because like some of those, like because of the nature of a Metroid game, you're kind of going back through areas you've been to before, and some of those enemies you kind of had to just, if I recall correctly, there's some you just really couldn't damage or they were a huge pain to take care of, and then you come back through with some new weapons and you can just kind of wipe the floor with them, which is always very satisfying.
It's always satisfying in any sort of adventure game to go back to an area that gave you grief early on and just wipe the floor with everything that's there.
Well, so how far have you gotten in this particular playthrough?
Not very far yet. It's been kind of a busy week, but I'll probably get much further later in the week.
Cool.
And with that, I think we move on
let's go to Control, which I have never played nor familiar with.
So Control is I think it came out for like PC and stuff, but like a third-person action adventure shooter game that came out 2 years ago, I think. And it's very kind of supernaturally. So you go like there's in this world there's a government department of control, is what it's called, and you go into this government building that has all the the intimidating government architecture of just a faceless faceless entity kind of thing. And it's very, very empty. Lights are flickering. But what kind of the cool thing is you go around and you find like memos, like office memos and stuff, and it does a very good job at like slowly helping you realize that this stuff's like it's a paranormal investigation.
Is it creepy?
Agency? It is creepy. Yeah. Yeah. You round the corner and then you go into this like atrium and there's just like bodies floating.
That's good. Like dead bodies or like like whoa.
They are not. Yeah, they are not animated. So they could be dead, but then they disappear. So I guess I'll find out later. But it's so far very well done. Kind of the atmosphere is very good. I played a few hours at this point. Definitely want to play some more, but it's definitely a game I need to kind of. Usually I'll play a game, I'll have like a podcast going or something, but this is one that it's been interesting enough that I want to like commit my full attention to it, which I've learned is a special evening mood for Doc. Also, it's creepy.
Yeah, I know what you mean though. Speaking of mood, some games you just have to be like, you don't want to waste, and you want to make sure you're in that right gaming, I don't know, gamer zone.
Yeah, the gamer zone.
Some things, you play for like mindless, like Laguna Beach style entertainment. Some things you want to really savor.
Yeah,
like
more of a One Tree Hill game. Right? Everyone remember One Tree Hill, that show?
Remember.
Really had to go deep for
box set.
Good. But and you you come across a weapon. What's it called? It's called something cool. But it's like this gun that, like, you pass like a trial that makes you the director of the Department of Control because you discover the former director shot in the head. I think by that gun because he failed the trial and was found unworthy. What's that? Okay, I gotta know what the weapon is.
I think a good friend of mine actually did a playthrough of this game.
Okay. The service weapon.
I think we can all agree that Chad Michael Murray is not only a national treasure, but the best aspect of One Tree Hill.
I think so. I can't believe I typed control gun, and that way I actually got an answer instead of a bunch of gun control stuff. That's incredible.
Wow, I can't believe that control gun gets you a video game answer. That didn't devolve.
That's solid SEO, everybody. But yeah, good and kind of leading me along. I want to discover more about it, and I'm the director of the Bureau of Control, so I got to solve the problem.
Yes, you do.
Now, were you vice director before?
No,
you were
I just
director?
I just kind of showed up.
Right place, right time kind of thing.
Well,
Hey, man, you want to take this job?
you know, she's not happy about it.
Put in
And
a resume,
I,
or
there's something with her brother is like the reason you went there. But you were going there to like confront people, and then like everyone, all the surviving people, because I've run into some other people now, and they're like, oh, the director, and like, oh okay, here's a fun, you know. You go in like the entryway of the building, and there's like this huge portrait of the director, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then after you come out of that office with the service weapon, that's your picture up there now.
So,
yeah,
huh?
Yeah,
A mystery
a
indeed.
mystery, mysterious, and creepy to
What's that
play on
name
an
trees
85-inch television. It turns out, so I need to.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I need to steal the nerves and continue going. But
What's your pay stubs look like now that you're director? Hopefully, a significant increase in the
boy,
overall.
I hope so. I've been putting in work, considering how long I've had the job. You know, we'll have to see. I did not get a benefits folder. I'm sure that's coming in my email or something.
How's the HR department? I mean, maybe not great. If
I'm sure I'm going to end up there, and I bet it's not good. I bet it's not going well in the HR department.
How many hours do you say you put in?
Maybe 3 or 4. So very early.
How long of a game do you know? Is it a 40-hour, 30,000 hour game?
30 to 40 sounds about right to me, but I'm not positive.
I would most in that kind of story-driven horror genre, probably in the 30 to 40 range. But
yeah, and I don't know. It may not be super horror-y. I'm just kind of a weenie when it comes down to those kind of things.
Well, I think it sounds like it's supposed to.
Oh yeah, and it's done a very good job at kind of creating atmosphere, lighting. Like the look of the game is very good. I've been impressed. So.
I mean, I think it sounds like with floating bodies and stuff, you're supposed to be, like I said, unsettled. Can you die, or is it? Is there any skill-based thing?
I'll let you know. Elite gamer skills haven't died yet. Had a couple.
Okay.
Had a couple near misses. That's for sure. I think I took a screenshot. When did I take that? But yes, you can die. You have health and yeah, it's very much like that in terms of the shooting aspect of it.
Yeah, the genres on Wikipedia say like action, adventure, shooter, but if it's the game I'm thinking of, there are definitely horror elements to it. It's not just meant to be kind of trippy. It is absolutely meant to be a little bit horrifying.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But no, yeah, enjoying it so far. So.
Have you tried just? I think I don't know. Scary situation. I think I leave that job. I think I stop being director. I think I put in my my 2 weeks notice. I say I'm going to use the rest of my vacation time, and I just don't go back to work.
You know, and it just doesn't seem like I have quite as much freedom to choose those kind of options as I thought. So I guess
one thing I read about. I never played this game that I liked. One of the Far Cry games at the start.
Far Cry 3, I think. But yeah, go ahead.
Far Cry 3. I already know what you're talking about.
You already know about this.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. Yeah, somebody tells you to wait and they'll be right back, and that's like your ride. And if you wait for like 15 minutes, they come back and the game ends. I think there should be more elements like that.
The friend I mentioned earlier, who I'm 99% certain did a playthrough of Control, did an April Fool's Day playthrough of Far Cry 3, where they just did that and waited for the person to come back. And I was like, alright guys, I've completed the game.
That's very good.
Yeah, I like when games do little things like that, where just adding in a little something to make the game unique. Different way to beat the game that is deliberately a bit silly.
Yeah.
I like anything in a game where if the game itself isn't too overly serious, you can tell the people developing it had a little bit of a sense of humor about themselves and the thing they were making.
Yeah. And speaking of third games in a franchise, Morrowind.
Morrowind is the third game in the Elder Scrolls franchise, and I know that both of you have at the very least played Skyrim from that franchise.
Correct.
Yes. That is one I've played a lot of.
Elder Scrolls is definitely similar to Skyrim. It's an open world game from 2002. And I honestly, personally, like it better in a lot of ways, even though obviously the graphics are not quite as nice, and some of the mechanics aren't quite as polished as they are in Skyrim. As an example, in Skyrim, combat is pretty simple. You just swing your weapon and hit whatever you're attacking. Morrowind works off of a dice system, which is what a couple of games did during that era. Like, I know Knights of the Old Republic did a similar thing.
Still hewing a lot closer to the paper D&D kind of system, right?
Yeah, even though Knights of the Old Republic was more like automated combat, and Morrowind is more active combat.
Okay.
So, something I very much like about Morrowind is that it has the feel of being in kind of an alien world while not being too far out there. Like an alien medieval world, which is another.
You got your lizard people, your cat people, but they're barmaids and smithies.
Same races you have in every Elder Scrolls game from at least that point onward. I don't know if I haven't played the first two.
Daggerfall
and Arena, both of which are very
older. Those are older ones.
Yeah.
Being a Catman.
Catman, Khajiit.
You have coin, Khajiit have wares.
And
I really don't like the Khajiit, man. They're mean.
Yeah, people in the Elder Scrolls universe are unfortunately very racist, it seems.
Like everybody is.
Classic.
Super.
So
is like the upgrade stuff similar in terms of Skyrim, where you like the more you do something, the more that skill levels up, or is it more?
Yes, that I think is consistent throughout the series. So like the more you run, for example, your athletics will go up, and Morrowind also has a lot more skills and weapon breakdowns than the later games did. Like you've got short swords, long swords, axes, maces, all as spears, all as different weapon categories. You actually also have you do get shields in later games, but some things got kind of ixnayed as time went on, and one of those things that sadly got cut out of later games, although I can imagine it was because it was very hard to implement, is levitation. Which is actually key to several things in Morrowind, but completely cut out of Oblivion and Skyrim. And, of course, in Morrowind, it's also used for silly speedrun stuff, where you just float to a couple of the key areas in the game, take the major artifacts, and go kill the boss real quick to finish the main quest.
The way they figured out how to break a Bethesda game, incredible. Who'd have thought it could be done?
Oh man, there is one studio that really milks the ability to push out updates.
Side hop up that mountain. Do it.
So
What's that really racist class? And I think it's called like Republican. Is that what it is? Oh, Nord. It's the Nord in Skyrim.
No, hang on. You may have been right the first time. You know, it's been a while since I've played, but that feels right. Garbage group of white people. So yeah.
One other thing that I really like in Morrowind, which they changed in Oblivion, and I think changed back to the Morrowind style in Skyrim, enemies don't scale to your level. That was really weird in Oblivion, because once you hit a certain level, random bandits had glass and Daedric armor.
Ooh.
Yeah. Oblivion really punished you for not knowing what you were doing.
So they stepped up and got the rep up. That's what I'm hearing.
Morrowind,
everyone else is slacking.
Everything is at a set level, so you can still, of course, walk into a place that is well beyond your ability to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can deal with it, you can get some really cool loot way earlier than you're supposed to have it. I think I remember doing that very early on in my Morrowind playing career, where I happened across a random cave with people who were well beyond my level, but I had, as a daily power, I could paralyze somebody for 60 seconds. And
that's pretty good.
Could just take out a very high-level enemy within that time, hopefully.
I can see the logic of, like, if you're trying to be like a super open world, I can see like the idea of having all the enemies scale to where you're at, because then you can kind of go anywhere, right? But it's just I could see that being fun in the early part, but then yeah, you're right. Once you reach a certain point, you kind of want your power level to exert itself, right? Like, so interesting. Now in Morrowind, can I shout a dragon to death?
Sadly, no. Shouts were not brought in until Skyrim. Boy. Also, dragons weren't brought in until... Well, technically there was one in Oblivion, but we don't count that.
Boy, lots of dragons in Skyrim, if I recall.
There's lots of dragons in Skyrim. Dragons were enemies in Oblivion or Morrowind.
Okay.
They might have been in the first two games, because, as mentioned, I have not played those, so I can't speak for any
Probably
enemies.
Not. Those would be pretty big
mechanics.
Sprites for that.
Yeah, I agree. I find it to be unlikely.
So now this is Morrowind is not a short game, if I recall. Are you did you want to play just to kind of refresh your memory, or are you gonna make a long playthrough out of it?
I'm gonna make a long playthrough. I'll do what I usually do at this point, which is give myself one or two specific items starting out that I really like, instead of going to track them down, and then just kind of roam my way through the countryside. And instead
a weary traveler.
Instead of just giving myself Daedric armor right off the bat, I did a playthrough where I just used whatever cool stuff I could find, besides giving myself my favorite sword right at the start. And it was ecstatic when I finally found a full set of ebony armor, which is, kind of underwhelming if you already have Daedric, but if you're not deliberately going out of your way to get the best stuff right off the bat, is a really cool find.
Okay, cool.
I also think ebony armor just looks fantastic.
Nothing wrong with that.
Of course, because I know where certain things are in this game, I kind of have to go out of my way a little bit to avoid those areas. So it's like, oh, well, here's a place where I know that I can kill everyone without feeling bad and get a bunch of Daedric armor. I'm going to avoid that until I get Daedric armor by accident somewhere else.
So, how big does the world feel, kind of compared to something like Skyrim? Does it feel pretty
that's
big?
a good question, because I've never played
It feels pretty similar, actually. Like,
Interesting.
there's enough different environment to help feel like a big world, whereas Oblivion, everything kind of looked the same. It was all just generic Europe forest. Whereas in this, you've got wastelands.
Which
you've
one
got
came first?
Morrowind.
Morrowind or Oblivion?
Morrowind, Oblivion, and then Skyrim.
In this, you've got wastelands, areas with giant mushrooms, swamps.
Nice.
I like giant mushrooms. They're a fun little fantasy thing to
Truman,
add
love
to
it.
a game.
Can you cut the mushrooms?
Sadly, no. Like as mentioned, this game was from 2002, so interaction with your environment is fairly limited.
For some reason, and like the box art's boring because it's just.
I
like
agree.
It's just
the
like
box art is boring.
but it's still something I can like vividly remember walking into Best Buy and going, "Ooh, Morrowind, what's that about?"
Yeah, I remember that box too. That's an excellent point, because
well, like what? Like why?
Why? Yeah, why do I remember that?
Yeah, which is weird because it's not a standout box art.
No,
at
there's
all,
nothing
but it's
to it.
so
No,
easy to
but
remember.
it's so memorable. I mean, I distinctly remember that little symbol.
Yeah, I guess it was just like a color brown that you don't see committed to a full cover of a video game. That might be it. You're just like, what? What were they doing here?
I'm trying to think of box art I remembered. Doom for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Good question. I remember some of my favorite games, but that's only because they would be like sitting around. You know, you'd have the CD and the little insert, and so be it not because of a memorable thing, but a familiarity thing.
Yeah, you took it out enough times. Well, and I remember I used to tape the N64 boxes to my wall, which I regret now because I could still have those if I didn't put stupid tape on them.
But it was aesthetic, you know.
Yeah, my room looked really cool. That's true. That's so.
On that note, I think we could move into games that surpass their genre.
All right.
First of all, we should probably just talk about genres we don't like.
Hey, MOBAs are garbage.
You're probably not.
I don't have one to offer for the topic. I just wanted to get that out there.
That's perfectly fair.
What does it stand for again?
Multi-online battle arena. I don't know. It's battle arena, which is a really stupid.
Battle arena.
Multiplayer online battle arena.
That's It's a really dumb acronym.
Most dumb, like, obsolete butt action.
Butt ass.
Multiplayer online battle arena.
It's really dumb. That means nothing. Multiplayer online battle arena. Battle and arena are basically synonyms. I mean, like, not synonyms.
Yeah, that could apply to the aforementioned Counter-Strike or any battle royale game or Magic the Gathering.
Any multiplayer game ever.
Yeah.
Arenas are where battles take place. It's just, if you say arena, I'm assuming that some sort of battling happens there.
I said I like this topic. It's tough to so Jumpblade talked about Metroid Prime, right? So that's a good example for him, I think.
MOBA also stands for the Museum of Bad Art, apparently.
Okay, well
I know.
Just a little fun fact for
I know the
everyone.
MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, but
what's the difference?
Oh, Duncan.
Oh man,
You're dunking all over the place.
Sorry, I had to go hard in the paint on that one. What are you saying, Valen?
The last thing I said was about the MoMA.
Oh, okay. Well, I say because like I can think of like quite a few genres I don't like, but I can't quite. It's tough to think of games that surpass that. I guess one I can think of is like so I'm gonna go, down a level here, not just racing, because I've liked plenty of racing games, but like simulation racing games, I'm not a huge fan of. But Gran Turismo 4, 5, whatever one was on the PlayStation 3. Prologue, which came out before the actual game came out, so it was just a few cars and tracks, so a very pared down experience. Came out while I was in college, and I got really into that game to the point that I had a top 3 time in the world on one of the tracks for some amount of time.
Nice.
So I used to have a picture of the screen where it proved that, but I don't know where that is anymore, so no one's going to believe me. But
I believe you.
The Nissan Skyline on the whatever the mountain level was called in Gran Turismo whatever Prologue, I was pretty dang good at it. That's one I can think of because I really haven't done any other sim racing games since. Like it just hasn't been something I've had the itch to go back to, but for some reason that one really captured me for a little while.
Perfectly fair.
I don't racing games either, and the only one I can think of that would even kind of qualify would be, what was it? Captain Falcon. What's he from? F-Zero?
Mm-hmm.
That one.
F-Zero's very good.
Cool.
Which is kind of weird that that franchise seems to be pretty much dead. Like
it's very odd because it feels like Nintendo thinks that and they're probably right that Mario Kart is enough because that game sells.
Oh, I guess Mario Kart for sure.
Out of its nose, but I wouldn't put Mario Kart and I wouldn't say those would be competing games to me.
No, I wouldn't think you're getting a lot of cannibalization.
Or like people because everyone's gonna buy Mario Kart, and then the people that want F-Zero are gonna they're not gonna buy F-Zero instead of Mario. Like everyone's still gonna buy Mario Kart.
You're not gonna get one or the other. If anything, you're just gonna get both.
But you're right. It's been very odd the complete absence of that game since the GameCube. I think.
Yeah.
I don't like fighting games, but I like Smash Brothers.
That's a very good one. For me as well. I can't stand most fighting games.
Like I never got into Mortal Kombat. I guess no, I never really got into Street Fighter.
Clay Fighter, that was a good one.
I'm not familiar with that.
It was a bad one, but it had claymation like characters. So
well, that's kind of a cool aspect, I guess.
Yeah, kind of. For 1994 or whatever it was.
Also, in terms of racing games that everyone likes, even if they don't like racing games, Nintendo has Mario Kart.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's definitely the ultimate arcade racing game, Mario Kart for sure.
Here's a Clay Fighter playthrough.
Okay.
On YouTube.
Tell you what, if you've got the Nintendo 64 game, you've got a fair bit of cash on your hands. That's a super rare.
Really?
Yeah, Clay Fighter 63 and a third Sculptor's Cut or whatever.
Mario Kart 64.
Yeah. No, yeah, Clay Fighter.
What the hell is this? Blue suede goo.
Yeah, they had some great names for those characters.
Terrible pun.
So another example that I can think of, and probably one of the only other examples I can think of, I love the remake of Doom for 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a fan at all. It has, and I think it's because it kind of does the action adventure thing the same way Metroid Prime does.
Yeah, that's very true.
Well, not exactly the same way, but has kind of a similar feel to it.
Yeah, it definitely has that feel. You're right. That's a good point.
And I think that's about the only way I can really enjoy a shooter, at least on its own, when I'm just going to play a game by myself, is if it's a shooter mixed with some other genre. So Doom and Metroid Prime are kind of mixed with the action-adventure genre.
Yeah. Well,
Metroid Prime to a much greater degree, obviously.
Well, I'm sure the sci-fi nature of both probably helps that too, because
yeah, I think so.
I definitely had fatigue playing Call of Duty campaigns. I was like, okay,
yeah,
I get it.
I also just really like how good of a silent protagonist the Doom Marine is in the 2016 game.
That's very true.
They do a very good job of showing what kind of person he is without having him say a darn thing.
Gives absolutely no fucks about anything, any of the of the deeper meaning or anyone's motivations or anything. He's just.
One of my favorite moments in the game is still when you are following the orders of the one guy to deal with the girl who opened the hell portal in the first place, and he says, "All right, now you have to remove this thing gently so that we can do this all again later." And the Doom Marine just freaking curb stomps the thing off of what it's attached to, because he's saying, "Bullshit, you are not risking opening a portal to hell again if I have anything to say about it."
I've been through this too many times.
He really has. I think one time is already too many, and he's been through 3 games before that, at least, that I know of.
Put him through the ringer a bit on that one. Some other...
want a quick short squeezed.
A short what?
Short squeeze. That's what happened with
oh god.
This whole situation is making me want to watch the movie The Big Short.
Maybe.
I've heard good things.
I thought it was a really good movie.
It just bummed me out. Like,
it is a bummer, sure, but I mean, also I think it's important for people to know because that's like literally what happened.
Yeah, and we learned. Let me look at my list. Nothing.
Yeah.
The only other games I can think of that may vaguely qualify for this are like sports games of like just because like I played plenty of like different football games and basketball games and stuff, but like let's see, Super Tennis for the Super Nintendo was like the one tennis game I got super into back in the day. It's just a fantastic game in terms of the music and character models. Mark with the sports shades, great stuff. Always picking Mark for the win. And then Super Mario Strikers Charged, I think for the Wii, for a soccer game. That's one of the few games I have stayed up all night playing that game. Like it's on a what, you know, a very short list of my friends, and I started at like 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. and then like blinked and it was like 7:30 in the morning and we're like, oh.
I'm willing to play like almost any Mario insert sport here game.
They do such a good job for the most part.
Mario Tennis for the 64 will play any day of the week. And I assume later entries are pretty much the same. Mario Golf Toadstool Tour, great game for the GameCube.
I've got the Japanese version of that one because I'm going to speedrun it someday. Just kidding.
Is there any particular reason to have the Japanese version as
opposed
to the...
Junkblade, you're perusing the internet and you see something for cheap and you're like, why not?
Oh, I'm not saying there's... No. I'm not saying it's a bad thing.
You should say that. There's no...
If there was a motivation.
There's no reason for me to have that. I will say that the Japanese GameCube cases are small and very cute. So that's fun. But...
Okay.
And I guess I can, like, Mario Golf is a game I can play without knowing any Japanese, so I guess that's a positive. But other than that, it is completely unjustified.
Okay. I was wondering if there's, like, some sort of alternate character or some sort of alternate feature in the Japanese version.
I'm sure I got it for cheaper than I would get the US version at this point. That's probably true, but that's a thin justification of that.
But like you said, Mario Golf is one of those games where you really don't need to read anything or understand anything anyone is saying to enjoy the game.
Correct.
Excuse me.
All right. Anyone else got any other games that crawled out of the poop pipe of poop genres and Sean Bright?
I guess a little bit. Until Dawn, the sort of like the playable movie type game.
Oh, that was
okay.
that one was really fun. Although I don't mind playable movie. The only game genres I really don't really like that much are usually fighters and racing games. And there's a short list in those two genres of I like Super Smash Brothers, I like Mario Kart, and F-Zero 1 was pretty fun.
Turns out Nintendo knows how to make a goddamn video game, huh?
Yeah.
Who'd have thought?
For me, it's mostly shooters. MOBAs are pretty universally something I'm not going to ever enjoy unless somebody comes out with something really weirdly specific. And
here's an interesting one. Would you Jumply, would you play Splatoon at all? Would you give that a try?
I would give it a try.
Okay. Let's, like, if I had a copy of it that I didn't need, let's say,
really want somebody to play
nearby, still sealed,
possibly in your hands,
possibly in my hands, that I forgot to give to somebody else, and it's been 2 years, and I feel like I can't give it to them now. So
I would probably prefer Splatoon to Counter-Strike. I can say that much at least.
Okay. That's a game I've always meant to play more of because it's such a cool idea and it is really done well.
Yeah, I would absolutely play Splatoon with you, Doc.
All right. Well, offline we'll get that set up then. And if Alan wants to, jump on the Switch train,
maybe,
and fly off to wondrous adventures, here we are.
All right, quick lesson on what a short squeeze, just for everybody out there wondering about the game.
Right, grab the whiteboard.
Phenomenon. We won't need that because it's actually pretty simple. So first of all, the idea is just, and I'll just say this for posterity, but when you sell a stock, the idea is I get say that stock dollars right now. My agreement, and I say I want to sell it short 10 shares of that stock. My agreement is I'm going to get the current price. It's $10 right now, so I'm going to get $100 for those 10 shares of one. And my agreement is I owe you 10 shares of that stock at some point in the future. Now, a short squeeze is, and then my idea is I'm it because I think the price will go down. I owe you 10 in the future. I owe you, we'll say, a month from now. I think the price will be $5 in a month from now. So since I owe you 10 shares a month from now, I'm going to make $50 is the idea. The problem with selling a stock is that theoretically your losses can be infinite because the stock can always go up, but it can't always go down. A short squeeze is because with publicly traded stocks, you can see these open positions, and especially for a big firm with a big short position, you can know that okay, they owe 100 shares of this stock at X date. A short squeeze is you can rally enough capital to influence the price, manipulate the market. You can drive up the price enough that you're going to scare that person into closing out their position early by buying the stock that they owe in advance of the date that their position actually closes, which drives up the price even further. So already this is market manipulation because what you're doing is you're normally it's gigantic funds doing this to other gigantic funds, but in this case it was a bunch of retail traders, people with very little money. But this is a very old tactic. Again, the idea is we have this outstanding position. We know that they owe X number of shares at a certain date. And we know if we drive up the price enough, we can scare them to close out the position before that date at which they owe those shares. And they do that because, again, your losses are theoretically infinite. They aim at this short position, they have a bunch of money, right? Like today, I'm like, all right, 10 shares. I got the $10 for those shares. I have $100. Now, if that price of that stock goes up to $1,000 at the future, I owe 10 shares at $1,000. I owe $10,000. And that might scare the shit out of me if the price is going up and up and up. And so what I do is I'm forced to right now buy 10 shares to cover my position in advance of like that closing date. And again, that drives up the price even more. So like this is a classic trading scenario, the short squeeze. What you're trying to do is force somebody with a large short position to close that position early, and they do that by buying stock, which makes your shares even more valuable. And so yeah, if you can rally enough redditors to your cause, you can, I mean, the people who made a killing from GameStop, this is exactly what they did. There was a huge short position from Melvin Capital on GameStop. And knowing this, a bunch of like smart Redditors rallied a bunch of the other ones. um, and not only they got the price to shoot up wildly, but they got Melvin Capital, which makes more. And at this point now, it's just become like a day traders. It's just a roaster. I mean, because again, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff happening with them restricting trading and a lot of theories about that. But in it, like, distilled to its very essence, very simple trading scenario. It's called a short squeeze. It's normally not a bunch of you know average Joes doing it to a hedge fund. Usually, it's hedge funds doing it to each other.
And the really funny thing about this specific scenario I like mentioning to people is that the fund in question, Melvin Capital, shorted 140% of the available stock.
Well,
So
right. So that we're getting into option. So that's what's called options trading. And yes, you're right. They shorted more than their available shares in the universe, and that's like gets into the beauty of options trading. Now, if I've got that $100 and I really believe in that the price is going to go down, what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to sell stock short. I'm going to options to sell it short because with that $100 I can. Okay, so like, I mean, this is actually important stuff to like know. So like, okay, let's.
yeah, I'm paying full attention. It's Doc whose brain you have completely melted.
Well, I mean, simple option scenario here. So I have $100, and I think the stock is now. I'm going to buy one share of one stock that's $100 because I know without a doubt it's
My
going to be
arms might be stuck.
$120 a month from now. I want to make $20. Or instead of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to buy options to purchase the stock. So what an option does is it grants you the privilege to buy a stock at a certain price at a certain date in the future. If I know 100% that a month from now the stock is going to be $120, um, options are cheaper to buy than the actual stock. Yeah, and that's what all big hedge funds do. Is well, they are not all options traders. Some of them buy stocks to invest or sell, but the option to buy a stock is always cheaper than just buying or selling the stock. And the reason for that is because an option is potentially worthless. Um, like if you are like again like so I would have to go out into the universe and I would say I'm going to buy a bunch of options to buy this stock at $110 a share. Options are only valuable if the stock goes above $110, so I just wasted a bunch of money on nothing. So yeah, then you get into like options trading, but that doesn't really influence the underlying strategy. It just influences how crazy people they're being with their money. But yeah, short squeeze. That's what happened with the games. It's just that a bunch of redditors short squeezed a hedge fund rather than one hedge fund short squeezing another hedge fund.
Love to have all this on a completely made up thing. Love it.
Also, quite wisely, GameStop has said nothing about anything that's going on.
Well, because unfortunately, this probably really hurts GameStop.
Yes.
And the reason for that is because people who actually invest in GameStop, people who are going to hold long positions that are not day traders, have closed out their positions. There's already been a lot of people who were holding it long term with giant stakes in the company that closed out their positions. Companies do not want massive volatility. Publicly traded ones don't want massive volatility in their stock price because they want people. Uh, Massive volatility in your stock price influences your ability to issue more equity in the future and influences your ability to get more debt in the future. It's extremely dangerous. You do not want a spiking stock price any more than you want a crashing stock price. So this is probably very bad for GameStop.
Well, let that be a lesson. Stop bugging me for pre-orders every time I walk in the damn store. I actually trapped my arms in my chair doing that.
That could be dangerous. You got to be careful about it. Anyway, that brings us to the closing bell. What do you call it? There's the Wall Street thing. Closing bell.
Closing bell. Bing, bing.
Stonks, Bonks, Revenge.
Songs.
Got a real roller coaster for itself. If you guys were buying stock and up, you cashed out ahead. I don't know. Thanks for stopping
May
by.
your cells always be short. Maybe. I don't know. Okay.
May your cell phones always work and your
And your Coke, Dr. Peppers always be fizzy.
and full of cocaine.
So
Good
next week we'll plan to go. We'll decide the top games of 2002. Correct?
Yep, correct.
All right. So we've got some homework to do, and we'll see you next week. Have a good one, everybody.
Have a good one.